Alien Earth has finally arrived, with the crash of a Weyland Yutani deep space research vessel known as the USCSS Maginot, a name that refers to the Maginot Line, a massive and expensive defensive measure that was supposed to provide safety, yet it was easily bypassed, giving us a hint of what's to come for the Maginot. The first episode is called Neverland, which is one of the show's ties to Peter Pan that will become more evident as the series goes on. But before we get into everything, there's a bit of information ahead of the intro to set the scene. In the future, the race for immortality will come in 3 guises: cybernetically enhanced humans, or cyborgs, artificially intelligent beings, or synths, and synthetic beings downloaded with human consciousness, the hybrids. Which technology prevails will determine what corporation rules the universe. Alien and its sequel show us that the winners of this competition are Weyland Yutani and the synthetics, and it appears that Alien Earth will show us how they came out on top against Prodigy and their hybrids. Right off, I love the intro, with its slow pan along the dome of the Xenomorph drone, while the title slowly takes shape like it did in Ridley Scott's Alien and Alien Covenant. There are quick flashes of a Xenomorph as it stalks its prey, while the music is scary and unnerving, adding a feeling of dread to the Maginot as it drifts by a ringed planet and 2 distinct moons. It's an homage to the opening of Alien, where we saw a ringed planet with 3 moons and a similar brown coloration. That planet would later become known as Calpamos in the expanded universe, and 2 of its moons are LV-426 and LV-223. But it's the planet in the intro, Calpamos. We see 2 moons with it, which leads me to think that it is possible that the Xenomorph from the series was gathered from LV-426. The intro song is a trippy rendition of Strange Brew by Cream, and it really adds to and sets up the tension and unease that the first episode, and hopefully the rest of the season, will have. According to an article in Texas Monthly, Noah Hawley, the show's creator and head writer, said that for some reason the chorus of the classic Cream song Strange Brew kept running through his mind. Strange Brew, kill what's inside of you. On one level, the chestburster level, it was obvious what this meant, but Hawley was wrestling with other ideas. Who were the corporate masters sending these working class space truckers to their deaths? Why are people such monsters? How do we deal with AI? And does humanity deserve to survive? There are flashes of someone in black gloves as they struggle to hold a facehugger down on a table. And when the Alien Earth title is finished with its reveal, in a nod to the titles from Aliens, there's a blue glow from behind the R of Earth. The end of the intro takes us to the bridge of the Maginot, where the ship wakes up like the Nostromo did in Alien, with its computer display reflecting off of an emergency helmet. We then see the ship's mother interface room, which is very close to the Nostromo's in its design. Everyone has been wondering if the show is canon to the Alien franchise, which includes all 7 Alien films according to 20th Century Studios, especially when Noah has said that he not only doesn't like the modern aesthetic that was present in the prequels, but that he didn't like the intention of Ridley Scott to suggest that David was the creator of the Xenomorph, which he saw as an ancient creature that wasn't made recently. In the first episode, we can see that the prequels aren't taken into account as the show takes place in 2120, the same year that the Nostromo leaves Earth on the journey that would lead them to LV-426 in 2122. For the Maginot, their mission took 65 years to complete, and it took them 805 million miles away from Earth. And as the ship approaches Earth, we see that it has the Weyland Yutani Wings logo on its side. If the ship was sent out 65 years ago and it's 2120 now, then that means that the ship left Earth in 2055. But that's before the merger of Weyland Yutani. So this couldn't have been a Weyland Yutani ship, and instead would have been from Weyland Corporation or Yutani separately. In the expanded universe, the merger takes place in 2099, mentioned in the Weyland Yutani report, and again in the prequel novel Alien Covenant Origins. But Origins' story doesn't line up with Alien Earth. And as far as the films are concerned, we only know that the merger takes place after Prometheus in 2093 and before Alien Covenant in 2104. But if the prequels are out, then the merger could have taken place before 2055, which would explain the early wing logo markings on the ship, though that doesn't explain the more modern company logos that are in its lab. But perhaps this section of the vessel was updated before leaving, unless they're doing their own 3D printing and painting, as I don't think that they were making any pit stops for branding updates or new equipment on such an important and confidential mission. There's also the conversation that takes place between the ship's engineers, with the chief engineer telling his tech about Weyland Yutani, their employer, who at this time controls both North and South America. The crew joins in on the discussion, and we find out that the moon is controlled by a company called Dynamic, and Yutani has Mars and Saturn. I find it curious that they mention Weyland Yutani and then Yutani separately, and I know the prequels aren't used here, but in Prometheus, Weyland Corp was already on Mars. Now Romulus fits in between Alien and Aliens chronologically, but Alien Earth had been in production since 2019 and into 2024, while Romulus was made in 2023. So they overlapped, and according to both Fede Alvarez and Noah Hawley, neither of them had any connection to the other's work. But I think with the show's initial release, we can finally say that the series is in its own alien universe. Noah himself said that he is, quote, outside of the timeline. FX Entertainment president Gina Balin said that everything doesn't have to fit together the way that you expect from Marvel. Fans don't expect that in this universe. It doesn't have the same pressure. And in the Alien Earth podcast, Dana Gonzalez, an executive producer and director who worked with Hawley on Fargo and on Alien Earth, calls the show's remakes and says that Alien Earth is in its own world. And to be honest, I'm fine with this decision. Stories from the expanded universe are fun because they aren't tied down by the films, and can instead take things into a new direction, allowing for new stories, alternate takes, and new aliens. And for those who don't like the lore that was provided by the prequels, you could see Alien Earth as an alternate look of a world before Alien. Getting back to the episode, the crew is coming out of cryosleep, and it's set up just like the Awakening in Alien, with the flower-shaped arrangement of the cryobeds and the slow-motion movement of the actors and actresses. They then make their way to the kitchen, and again, it's just like Alien, with everyone eating and talking with each other. But we're quickly taken to Tang, who is framed ominously in the dark. He's in the room, and they're talking about him like he can't hear them, or that they don't respect him enough to care what he hears. A woman says that cryo creeps her out, and Raheem says that's because Tang stares at you when you sleep. And he does. We see it as he reaches his hand out over her bed. Morrow has supposedly talked to him about it, and he doesn't do it anymore. But I have to say, as creepy as it is, it reminds me of David, who placed his hand on the cryo bed containing Elizabeth Shaw, where he used a special helmet to view her dreams as she slept. But this is just weird here, and ominous horns from the Alien soundtrack play in the background. Morrow says that he won't be a problem unless he wants to work 65 years with no pay. But moments later, he's doing it again, creeping on the same woman at the table. Just standing there in a freaking robe, eating gruel and staring at her in front of everyone. Morrow has to call him out to get him to move, but he just goes and sits right next to another woman, who quickly moves away. He's asked about the nav computer, and he's upset about being questioned if he's doing his job. And when he's asked how long till they get to Earth, he gives the smartass answer of 10,525,000 seconds, plenty of time. And when asked about how many months, we finally get 4 as a clear answer. I just hope that he's set up as that guy that you're pulling for the aliens to take out. We then meet the captain and learn about several problems with the ship. The comms are down, some of the log files have been corrupted, and they are burning way too much fuel. Tang and another crew member are told to see what systems can be shut down, which could be a possible cause of the eventual alien breakout. The engineer chief says to get rid of some of the specimens, but Morrow firmly says that the specimens are the mission, even going so far as to saying that he can post extra security or restrict him to his quarters. Morrow is definitely our company man here. Even the captain stands back silently as he takes charge of the room. And we'll see later that he'll do anything to keep what they found away from Prodigy Corporation. In the lab, a large rat is given to a few insect-like creatures that look like worms with legs near their heads, while T.O. Celis, which Hawley calls the Eye, sits in its jar like a spider, watching and possibly plotting its escape. There are facehuggers chilling out in containers, and a wasp-like alien can be seen coming out of some kind of hive or nest in its tank. While this is going on, Nina Simone is playing in the background. Baby, you understand me now, if sometimes you see that I'm mad. A nod perhaps to the mad scientist-type testing that is going on here. There are quick flashes of the Xenomorph stalking a crew member, and we'll see this scene play out later, so some of these flashes, if not all of them, may be glimpses into the future. Tang can be seen screaming out, the insect aliens begin to feed, there's a body on the ground, the Xeno is hunting in a runner stance, and as the frantic music builds to its peak, Earth comes into view with the ship hurtling towards it. Noah is definitely bringing the tension with this series so far. There are jump scares and creepy sights in all of the Alien films, but I haven't felt this tense while watching Alien since I watched the first 2 films as a kid. Romulus had some jump scares, and it did build up tension with the facehuggers in the cryo chamber and the offspring at the end. But the uneasiness here extends beyond the creatures, and into the idea of kids who are forced to confront death and monsters on an incredible scale. On Prodigy's research island, Neverland, we see a scorpion trapped in a glass container. This was in the trailers, and many of us saw it as a nod to Kinner's scorpion alien figure, but I also saw it as a stand-in for the Xenomorph, with its armored exoskeleton and its dangerous teeth and claws. The Xenomorph would even have a stinger in its tail in the novelization for Aliens. Kirsch has captured it, and Marcy, the girl that will soon become Wendy, is afraid of it and wants it killed so it doesn't hurt them. But Kirsch says, what if while I'm squashing it, another scorpion stings me to protect this one, in the same way that she is trying to protect him. She's frightened by it, but think of how it feels, he says, held by giants under glass. Dame Sylvia enters to take her in for the procedure, and she asks, are you gonna kill it? Do you want me to, he replies. No, she says, which raises the question, will she willingly kill the alien if it's not directly threatening her or those that she cares about? She's a hybrid, but Kirsch wants her to let go of her human side and to embrace the synthetic. And he's her mentor, so we'll see where this goes in later episodes. We then see this crazy looking guy in the hallway who looks like he would feel more at home in Noah's other show, Legion. It's wearing some kind of hazmat suit with what appears to be a backpack sprayer, and it's applying an unknown substance or maybe even freezing the area with something like liquid nitrogen. But it can't be too toxic, as the two just walk right past him like he's not even there. But the camera does hang on him for a moment, so I'm sure we'll see more of this strange character later on. My only guess for now is that they do say that the transfer process only works with children, as adult minds are too rigid, and maybe this poor guy is how they found that out, leaving him to do menial work around the facility. Boy Cavalier enters and talks to Marcy about being a pioneer like Neil Armstrong, as she is the first person to transition to a synthetic. As she lies next to Wendy, she holds a flower, symbolic of the death of Marcy, as there are those who believe that Marcy's soul is lost here and only information makes the transition. Disney's Peter Pan is playing on the screen above the operation table, and it appears everywhere as a theme to the show. The facility is called Neverland, Marcy becomes Wendy, and the other kids are called the Lost Boys. In the podcast for the show, Noah talks about this and says that there are differences between the cartoon version and the novelization. And in the book, Peter is a much darker character, referring to a part where Peter is breathing fast because he thinks that every breath kills an adult. They are taking children and putting their minds into adult-sized synths, where they could live forever in a powerful new body. But these are still kids with very little life experience, so it's only a matter of time before it all goes wrong. Noah Hawley then shows up on screen in a cameo appearance as the father of Marcy and Joe in The Memories of Wendy. And afterwards, she is relaxing on the side of a mountain, enjoying her new body and taking it all in. She's called back to the facility, and she jumps down from an impossible height with no problem, landing firmly without a superhero landing. And then she just runs off like a kid in a race. All of the writers and actors and actresses playing the kids did a great job in showing just that they are kids in these new enhanced bodies, telling jokes, messing and wrestling around, while also being terrified of the unknown. When we catch up to Wendy once more, she's sitting with Dame Sylvia and Kirsch in a funny scene where she's asking about her breasts, saying that they're weird and that they move around when she runs. It's very childlike and pulled off without any creep factor. She's asked if she's happy or sad, but she says her emotions are quiet now. Kirsch tells her that the human body manufactures hormones, dopamine, serotonin, estrogen, and testosterone to create moods. You don't have those anymore. Dame Sylvia says that they simulate them for her, to simulate adolescence as she grows into her adult body. So it's not just like flipping a switch, and that she wants to increase them, but Kirsch is against it. Dame Sylvia said that she needs them to stay human in this vessel, but Kirsch wants her to let go of her humanity to become something greater. Boy Cavalier is watching all of this, spying on everything in his empire, watching through Wendy's eyes and with multiple cameras, while he appears to be in a room used for the manufacturing of synths, as there are synth body parts, the white blood-like fluid, and a group of 3 human-like faces up on the wall. She now has to welcome the other kids, where one of them asks when they get to go home. But Wendy says that they don't, and that they will stay there forever. Boy sees this and hatches a small evil grin. It appears that Prodigy has paid off the families of terminally ill kids to take them away and to give them a second chance. But they won't get to return to their families, and other family members are told that they died. Funerals are held, and the kids are now property of Prodigy, to be used like inanimate objects at the discretion of Boy Cavalier. At night, Cavalier reads to them from the novelization of Peter Pan. Miss Darling first heard of Peter when she was tidying up her children's minds. It is the nightly custom of every good mother after her children are asleep to rummage in their minds and put things straight. When you wake in the morning, the naughtiness and evil passions with which you went to bed with have been folded up small and placed at the bottom of your mind. And on the top, beautifully aired, are spread out your prettier thoughts, ready for you to put on. Like Miss Darling, Prodigy has access to the memories of Wendy and her Lost Boys, and if they could transfer these memories, it's possible that they can make false ones or alter the real thing. He reads on saying, "In the old days, the Neverland had begun to look a little dark and threatening by bedtime. The unexplored patches arose in it and spread. Black shadows moved about in them. The roar of the beasts of prey was quite different now. Above all, you lost the certainty that you would win. A precursor, perhaps, to the alien threat that the children will soon be dealing with." We then see Marcy's body as it's zipped up in a body bag, and are then shown a stone carving on the wall of the three wise monkeys, or see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. In Buddhist tradition, they symbolize the avoidance of evil thoughts and deeds. But in the West, it's more about turning a blind eye. The podcast tells us that Wendy is written like she does have a human consciousness, but it is unknown, at least at this point, if Marcy truly died or now resides in Wendy. Back with the Maginot, an outbreak has taken place. There's venting out from the exterior, and on the inside, all hell is breaking loose. We see flashes of facehuggers, Teocellus taking a host, and people injured in medbay. Collision is imminent, as creatures escape and ravage the crew, while Morrow has locked himself in the mother interface room and is relaying information to the company about the situation. The flashes of a girl from earlier who was being stalked by the alien is taking place now outside of the room, and she wants in, but Morrow ignores her and welds the door shut with his bionic-like hand. She is ripped to shreds by a Xenomorph, who then turns its attention to Morrow and eventually breaks in, only for him to narrowly escape by entering an impact room in the floor. The ship then hits something in Earth's orbit, a new space station of some kind, like Gateway Station from Aliens, perhaps an earlier version of it, with a strange circular design to it. Below in New Siam, or Prodigy City, Hermit, the brother of Wendy, whose real name is Joe, is meeting up with his co-workers from Prodigy, and Wendy is watching them through cameras that are placed all around. She then looks to her memories of Joe as they watched Ice Age Continental Drift, a favorite of theirs that comes up in episode 2. Kermit meets up with the rest of his team where he says that he has to serve out his time. He tried to get an early leave to go to medical school, but he was denied. Just then, the Maginot approaches them from behind and crashes down into the city. And I have to say here that these buildings are amazingly durable as the ship hits the ground and goes right through the bottom of one, yet for now, it's still standing. Kermit's team are the first responders, so they head in, taking huge yellow transports that resemble the blocky and utilitarian design of the APCs used in Aliens by the Colonial Marines. I love the details of the crash site. It's horrifying and ominous, feeling like 9/11, yet on a much larger scale. The engines still firing off from the Maginot are an amazing touch, giving off this feel that it's all gonna blow up any second, creating even more tension. It's pure chaos, with people being smashed by falling debris. Once inside the building, the chaos continues, as Hermit's search and rescue team is calling out to the wounded and inspecting their surroundings. They eventually find the ship, and it's eerie looking, with the damage to its exterior giving it a biomechanical feel like the derelict from LV-426. We then find out that one of the Prodigy team members thinks that the Maginot is a science vessel from Weyland Yutani, as he collected the cards as a kid. So Weyland Yutani trading cards are canon here, and why aren't these available to buy yet? The Maginot's mother computer is reawakened, and so has Morrow, who uses his torch to cut free, where he then sees Prodigy soldiers on the ship's monitors, and tells Mother to alert Weyland Yutani HQ the ship has been boarded, status of cargo unknown, and he's moving to the armory and will secure the ship until reinforcements arrive. Back with Wendy, she's having her hearing tested, and she's able to hear high-frequency sounds that humans can't hear, which comes into play later as she may be able to pick up on something from the Xenomorphs, perhaps a form of communication, or the psychic ability that they possessed in Alien Resurrection and in the comics. She sees Hermit on a screen that's showing the crash site, and she's able to remotely control the screens in a way that surprises the tech who was testing her. Cavalier is then briefed by his right-hand man about the Maginot. The ship is a Weyland Yutani deep space research vessel, It's unknown if there are any survivors inside, and there are mass casualties on the ground. Cavalier wants what's in the Maginot, and it's in his city. His right hand says Yutani will want her ship back and its cargo, but Boy says that she can sue, looking to tie things up while he loots what he wants. Wendy then volunteers to go in, and he's curious to know as why she wants to do this. Kirsch says that it's for her brother, and Cavalier is astounded by her body language and expression. It's almost like she's human. Send them in, he says. Send in the Lost Boys. Then he can test them out and monitor them to see how they handle stress, with Kirsch going in as the team's lead. His right hand warns him, but it's all a game to Boy, with the mind of a genius and the attitude of a child. I love the scene of the Lost Boys joking around here, talking about what happens if their batteries run out. And I really like the design of the helicopter-like hovercraft with turbines in its wings and egg-shaped windows. Here's hoping that we get to see more of the vehicles and gear of Prodigy and Weyland Yutani in later episodes. In the Maginot wreckage, 2 Prodigy search and rescue team members find a lab full of alien specimens, including a body on the ground with a sunken-in face like it was drained. That worm-like alien before drops down on a web onto one of their shoulders, but it's unnoticed. Morrow then catches them from behind and ties them up in the lab. The bug-like creature then reappears, bites the guy's neck, and begins to drain him like a tick, killing him and bloating up to an obscene size, like as big as a basketball. Then another drops down on the other guy and bites him as well. Meanwhile, Kermit and his team finds the cryo room, as the alien's music sting plays again in the background, and keeping with that film, Kermit brushes dust off of a cryo bed just like they did with Ripley. But these people are all dead, with most of them being impaled by metal bars that fell from the ceiling. One of them, however, is a victim of a chestburster, though I will say that it didn't look to me like a standard chestburster exit wound. The hole seemed to be bigger than normal, and it seemed to be lower on the torso, with no ribs pushed out, which made me think that it was caused by some kind of Xeno hybrid or something else. But we do see a dead facehugger nearby, so it's gotta be from a Xenomorph, but let me know if it looked a little off to you, other than the discoloration that was caused from the age of the corpse. The episode ends with Kirsch, Wendy, and the Lost Boys heading to the wreckage. The kids are playing games, oblivious to the dangers that they are about to face, and Kirsch tells Wendy, "You used to be food, you know. Humanity. Your lives were short and filled with fear. Then your brains grew. You built tools and used them to conquer nature. You built impossible machines and went to space. You stopped being food, or I should say, you told yourself you weren't food anymore. But in the animal kingdom, there is always someone bigger or smaller who will eat you alive if they get the chance. That's what it is to be an animal. You're born, you live, you die." There's then movement around the Maginot wreckage, and it drops down even further around the building that it slammed into, which extends underground as Kermit falls. Wendy tells him that her brother is not going to die, and Kirsch says of course he will. Injury, illness, old age, they all do. Generation after generation. All we can do is watch and take names. Noah Hawley may be ignoring the prequel films, but this definitely reminds me of Peter Weyland in Prometheus and his quest for immortality. But with the optimism of a child, Wendy replies, "No, he's not gonna die. I'm gonna save him." It's hard not to see a bit of David in Kirsch. Both of them start off by serving mankind, and they are courteous in their actions, but they know that humans are beneath them, though I doubt that Kirsch will go to the lengths that David did in an attempt to rectify the situation. But I can't help but think that if they met, that Kirsch might agree with David's assessment of his creators. Timothy Oliphant has really nailed the role of Kirsch so far, and in the podcast they talk about how he does have some feelings, and that they are more reserved than what we see in the hybrids, but they are there. Like when Boy Cavalier is saying something that he doesn't agree with, and he'll give off a slight smile, as a sign of his disagreement. Yet at the same time, there's also a deadness that appears on his face at times that makes him look emotionless. I really can't wait to see more of him as the show goes on. Over the end credits, we hear Mob Rules by Black Sabbath, with all sorts of lyrics that link to the show. Close the city, tell the people, something's coming to call. Death and darkness are rushing forward to take a bite from the wall. This could be symbolizing the upcoming threat of the Xenomorphs and other aliens that are about to be set loose on Prodigy City. The song continues saying, "Kill the spirit and you'll be blinded. The end is always the same," which could refer to Marcy's spirit that hopefully has survived and resides in Wendy, and that she needs to hold on to it to keep some form of her humanity. And the last bit of lyrics, "Play with fire, you burn your fingers and lose your hold on the flame." Sounds like it refers to the classic Alien franchise metaphor, where anytime that someone experiments with the alien, no matter how intelligent they are, be they engineer, human, or AI, they all get burned in the end. Looking outside of the franchise and past Ice Age and Peter Pan is a loose tie-in with Blade Runner, which was intentional. The hybrids are somewhat like the replicants, though instead of human consciousness and a synth body, replicants are organic bodies that are implanted with memories, and Kirsch's hairstyle is a nod to Roy Batty. Unfortunately, Blade Runner is not owned by 20th Century Studios, so the ties are nothing more than Easter eggs, like the mention of Dallas and aliens having worked for the Tyrell Corporation, unless a deal can be made for some kind of crossover. Wendy, on the other hand, seems to be pulling her hairstyle from Major Motoko Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell, who has a similar makeup, though instead of being a human consciousness in a synthetic body, Kusanagi has a synthetic body with her original brain and spinal cord. I am loving the show so far after seeing this and the second episode. Its expansion of the types of AI that exist in the alien universe and the new creatures are welcomed additions if they are done right, and so far, I like what I see. I just hope that we get some Xenomorph hybrids somewhere down the line in the show. I also like that we're seeing a lot of the Xenomorph. Noah did say that we would see more of it than we get in the films, but I do hope that it's done with some moderation and with good intention, as the Xenomorph to me works best when operating from the shadows. As for the new design in the series, I'll admit that it's not my favorite look. I like the Xenomorph to have longer dorsal tubes and a head that has more of a curve to it, but I also understand that those aspects would limit the movements of a suit actor, so they are toned down here. It still works. Cameron Brown is doing an amazing job as the Xenomorph suit actor, and in the end, it's definitely an alien. Up close, I do have to say that it comes across as a bit too smooth and somewhat like it's made out of plastic, and at times, it can look too bulky and too much like a human. But Noah acknowledged this in choosing a suit actor that wasn't over 7 feet tall and with a thin frame. I'm used to films where the creature is used sparingly, with a massive KY jelly budget, or it's created with CGI or animatronics to give it more of a skeletal appearance, and to allow it to perform acts that humans just aren't able to do. But I also understand that this is a streaming series without the budget and resources of the films, so it didn't hold me back from enjoying the show. In fact, the changes in the design of the Xenomorph are fitting, as it has changed in every movie, which fits in with their lore, where they adapt to their hosts and their environment to conquer any situation. As for the attitude of the alien, it's fast and fierce like the runner from Alien 3. In the show's podcast, which you should check out, Cameron talks about the smooth and fluid movements of the creature when it's not in attack mode. But when it has a target, it jumps into action, swift and direct. It's tearing apart victims in a way that I not only didn't expect to see on Hulu, but in a gory and animalistic way that even the films don't show much of, and I'm all for it. I'm also really curious to see if that planet in the intro is in fact Kalpamos. I originally liked the idea that Kane was the first human to have contact with the Xenomorph, but if this is an alternate alien universe, then it really doesn't matter. And it answers the question of why the company would send space truckers to get something so dangerous and so valuable. Well, in this case, they had already sent out a research vessel. But if the series does prove to be self-contained, and the Xenomorphs on Earth aren't able to become a widespread problem in the end, then after the samples on the Maginot are lost, the next best thing would be the Nostromo, who is already leaving, or soon to be leaving, for that area of space as a plan B. The show has me hooked for many reasons. Like the films, it has me wanting to see what the next evolution of the Xenomorph will be. But I also can't wait to learn more about the other new aliens. I want to know more about this time period of Weyland Yutani and Prodigy. This is our first real look at Earth in the franchise, and I can't wait to see how these kids deal with their new synthetic bodies. Noah said that he'd make a good show first with good characters, and then he'd add in the Xenomorph. And it's not like they're in the back seat of the story, they're up front with everything else. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care, and I hope to see you next time.